Hi. Wow, it feels like it's 10 p.m. We're in a club, and I don't know. It's only 10 a.m. Okay, so I'm Vicki, and I'm a product designer at Headspace. I have to say my talk is the opposite of the one you just heard. So, don't be too excited. There's no sound effects, and we're gonna kind of relax a little bit. We might even meditate. So let's see how we do here. Okay, so I'm gonna do it. Quick show of hands. Who here has heard of Headspace? I know oh my God, that's almost everyone. Cool. Well, who here has actually meditated before? And it doesn't have to be with Headspace. Maybe you've just tried it. Okay, that's pretty good. Half, maybe? So just for those of you who are new to meditation, maybe you think that meditation is something like this, right? Like being completely zen or having no thoughts in your mind. Or maybe you think it's these stacked rocks, or pools of water with ripples in them, or something very serene. And maybe this all makes you think, meditation isn't for me. That's for people who do yoga, or who, sit on mountaintops, vegans. That's not me. But I'm here to tell you that that's not actually what meditation is. So meditation is just about being aware of your thoughts, sort of like this guy watching, I'm not sure what these are, basketballs going by. So you're just trying to become more aware of your thoughts. You're trying to observe them without judgment, versus getting them out of your mind. So for everyone to kind of be on the same page, I thought it would be great if we could do one all together here. It's just 3 minutes, so don't worry if you've never done it before. Let me make sure the volume's on. You'll hear Andy talking. I'll tell you in a little bit who he is. And he'll tell you everything you have to do, and I'll be doing it up here with you, which is also hard. So there's going to be an animation up here. I find it helpful to kind of start off with this. You can breathe in when it opens and out when it closes. And then after a while, we'll just end up closing our eyes, so you don't have to look at it the whole time. And can I have the chair? Thank you. Okay, so if everyone will kind of take a second to get comfortable, maybe uncross your legs. And we're going to start with our eyes open, but you'll hear Andy say when we should close them.
So take a moment to sit comfortably. And when you're ready, just taking 3 nice big deep breaths, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. As you breathe in, that idea of taking in fresh air, the lungs expanding. And as you breathe out, just noticing how the muscles in the body soften and relax. And with your third out breath, just gently closing the eyes. And just feeling the weight of the body pressing down against a chair. And as you pause, just still for a moment, just noticing the movement of breath in the body. Notice where in the body you feel that rising and falling sensation. If you can't feel anything, you can just gently place your hand on the stomach. Some people feel it around the chest, the shoulders. For other people, it's the diaphragm or the stomach. There's no right or wrong place to feel the breath. Just noticing where it is. And starting to notice the rhythm of the breath. Whether the breath's are fast, slow, whether they're deep or shallow. So nothing to do, not breathing in any special way. Just following the natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing when the mind has wandered off. Then gently coming back again to that rising and falling sensation. And when you're ready, just gently opening the eyes again.
So, how did that feel? I mean, it was a little bit weird for me up here because I didn't know if anyone was doing it. So let's just take a moment to see how we feel right now, right? Does anyone else feel like this guy, their thoughts were just running around and then they were kind of thinking like, man, I shouldn't be thinking. Hopefully some of you feel better. But I'm sure some of you thought that that was pretty hard, even though that was only 3 minutes. So meditation honestly is hard. Like, it doesn't always feel good at first, and the trick is sticking with it until it does. And that's kind of what my job is all about. So, let's see. Some of you might also be wondering who was that pleasant British voice actor that we hired to record our meditations. So this is Andy, and he's actually one of Headspace co-founders. This is before he became the co-founder, but his story is a really interesting one. So Andy was going through a really difficult time in his life. A lot of us have been through something like that, unfortunately. And instead of, turning to family or friends or even withdrawing or maybe hitting the bottle, I don't know what we do when we have a hard time, Andy decided to travel to the Himalayas to study meditation. And this kind of decision took him in this 10-year-long journey around the world, which culminated in his ordination as a Tibetan Buddhist monk. And so that's what you see here. And so it was on this journey that he figured out that the East had figured out something that the West desperately needed. So he went back to London, which is where he was from, and he opened up a clinic to teach meditation, trying to help people in the same way that meditation had helped him. And it was out there he met our co-founder, Rich, which is the guy on the right. And Rich was like many of us, stressed, busy all the time, like kind of burnt out. And together they had this idea to start doing meditation events because, you can see people one-on-one and you're kind of helping this many people. But if you can do the events, well, you'll be helping many more. So the very first version of Headspace was actually these cards in some way that they handed out at the meditation events. So it was like a take-home, these were the concepts that we taught you, how to sit, how to breathe, what to do when kind of weird thoughts come up. So just imagine these and fast forward a few app versions later, and you get to the Headspace we see today. So in general, we recommend that everyone starts with the basics. They're just 10 sessions. They're free. You can also try a shorter mini meditation. That's the one we just did. So they're usually like 1 to 3 minutes, and it's like kind of if you're on the go or maybe before a meeting or a presentation, get everyone to do it with you. And then if you want to go deep on a topic, say you are struggling with sleep or stress, relationships, we have specific packs for that. So I'm not just trying to sell you on Headspace. I'm trying to make a point here. I just gave you a bunch of context, right? I explained meditation. I demystified it a little bit. I gave you some context about who Andy was and where he came from. And then I also explained the Headspace app to you, like how it works and the general kind of structure of it. And so our challenge in moving from in-person events, which Andy and Rich would do in London, very similar to this, from moving to that to a digital product, was doing all that in like a few minutes with very little attention and very, very less time. So here we go. So I'm going to walk you through a case study, and it was an onboarding redesign that I did a few months ago. But this story is really about us as human beings and how we have this special ability to make connections and fill in the gaps. So by the end of this talk, I hope you'll understand the power of other methods of reasoning, not just data, that can inform how we make decisions and how we design. So first I'll start where we started about 6 months ago, which is where a lot of people start when you don't have a lot of time and resources, data. So this was our original onboarding flow. If you guys joined Headspace in the last, 6 months or earlier, you might have seen this. So on the right, you'll see the percentage of users that hit each stage, is the funnel, and then on the bottom, you'll see the percentage drop off. So we begin by welcoming and reassuring new users. We're here for you. We're gonna guide you through your journey, and then on each of these, we're calling them warm-up cards. You'll see a little bit of drop-off. I think this is typical. Some people are like, whatever, I don't care. I'm leaving. And then we ask users to watch a little introductory video. We wanted to, if you use Headspace, you'll know that we use a lot of kind of video and brand animation to kind of illustrate these abstract concepts. So this was a video we made to explain how to get set up. However, we see a really big drop-off here, 4.5%. Lots of people just were like, video, don't have headphones, don't care. And then they skipped it. So we have one more warm-up card, and then we ask you to jump straight into your first meditation. We had a theory that if you could try it, just like I had you guys try it right now, you'd be much more compelled to use the service going forward. However, we saw a huge drop-off here. Another 34% didn't even begin the meditation, and then another 18.4% did not even finish. So that left us at the end of onboarding with about 38% of new users who completed their first meditation session during onboarding. That's not bad, but that's not great either. I think it's typical for most onboarding funnels, but we wanted to do better. So these percentages are the number of users who reach a certain point in the flow, and that's their first time experience. But what we really care about is the number of people who actually come back to meditate in the week after or the weeks after. Because, you do it once, that's good, but what we want you to do is build a meditation habit. For those of you who aren't familiar with product-y terms, I'm going to be referring to this as retention going forward. I might also call it engagement if I'm not, I don't know. So here we go. This is what we're looking at in the weeks after onboarding. So if you'll remember, we started with 38% of new users trying session 1. In the week after, so say you tried it on a Monday, you thought about it during the week, and on the weekend you decided, I'll do it on Sunday instead, I have more time. So we see about half as many more users coming back to do their first meditation in that first week. But by week 2, we're seeing this huge drop-off. Only a fraction of users come back to do whether it's their first meditation or another meditation in week 2. So something was happening here in week 2. I forgot the rest of the weeks. We see incremental drop-off over the rest of the weeks. I think that's expected, but this huge gap in week 2 was troubling. So we started to look more closely at week 2. We also saw that those users who had come back in week 2 were more likely to convert to a paid subscription. So there was something that was going on in week 2 that was very compelling, and we decided to make this week 2 retention metric our North Star metric. So this is the number I'm going to talk about going forward as I talk about measuring success. Okay, So we had all this data, we knew where the users were dropping off, and we set off to redesign the onboarding. What could go wrong? So I've stolen some of these animations from our longer videos, but so with the data, we had a hypothesis that maybe our users were just getting annoyed. Maybe they just wanted to get into the app. Like they're like, onboarding, get out of here. So the first hypothesis, we thought, okay, we'll just add an X to the screen. Easy, like let people get out of onboarding, let them explore the app, drop off is fixed. Our next hypothesis was maybe users were disappointed that they had to watch this long onboarding video. I mean, we saw that huge drop-off right before the video and then a lot of them never finishing. So we created this series of animated GIFs that took all the information from that longer video and just kind of made it in this easy, like you don't have to press play, you don't need audio, you don't really have to even read the words to get the gist of it. So we wanted to help people get set up, and we hoped that would help them come back later on. Our third hypothesis was that maybe all users did not want to be onboarded in the same way. So, like these guys in the boats, maybe some did want to go directly into the app, maybe some wanted the instructional video, and maybe some just wanted to, I don't know, look at the warm-up cards. And so our third hypothesis was to just kind of create this choose-your-own-adventure interstitial screen to let people just tell us, like, what do you want to do? And then the last one here was we thought maybe our users were getting annoyed, like downloading that first session, or rather before the first session, that drop-off that we saw, we thought it was maybe due to people getting annoyed that they had to download it or something, maybe over low connectivity, this was taking too long. So we bundled session 1 with the app download. Seems pretty straightforward. All of these were like what we considered to be cheap, easy experiments based on data. So I think you know what I'm going to say. After we shipped these experiments, we saw some things go up, right? We saw session 1 completions go up. It's easier to get to session 1, so it kind of makes sense. We saw that the home screen views went up. We saw more people were skipping onboarding and exploring the app. However, these numbers, we call them leading indicators because they're sometimes correlated, but they can also result in false positives. So what we saw, sad guy, was that nothing moved week 2 retention. So that's the limitation of data, right? Or that's what I'm saying. It's backwards looking. It can only describe what has happened, but you can't use it alone to prescribe solutions. And that's what happens when you just look at data by itself. You begin to design these solutions based on assumptions rather than underlying user needs. Okay, so I decided to pause, reset, and take a step back to figure out, really, why weren't users coming back to meditate? So at Headspace, we are lucky enough to have this team. We call them the science team. Because we see meditation as a practice rooted in like the ancient practice, which is what Andy studied in the monastery, as well as a topic of modern science, we have those two inputs. So Andy helps us understand what he learned. The practice is what we'll call it. And then the science team helps us balance that with, like, how does that work in the real world? Like, do people find benefit? Are they actually feeling better? And so it was around this time that our science team was wrapping up a goals and intentions study, where they asked users, what are you hoping to experience in the short term and the long term with using Headspace? So this sounds pretty straightforward, but it was something we'd never asked users at all. So it was really interesting to see the results. We did a word cluster analysis of the participants' free-form responses, and we saw words like stress, anxiety, sleep showing up a lot. And from this, we learned that new users are really motivated by improving an area of their life. Again, this sounds kind of like, duh, what else would they want to do? But it was good to kind of get like the actual reasons and understanding how they phrased these. So they were saying things like stressing less, sleeping better, or feeling calm. And then secondly, this one I found to be the most interesting, that new users found a lot of value in simply articulating their goals. So a lot of people come to Headspace because they've heard of it. Maybe they heard it on TV or something, maybe a podcast. Like, lots of people talk about it, but they don't actually help you understand the details of it. And so what happened was a lot of people were kind of coming to Headspace without having thought about their goal. And so simply asking them what they were here to accomplish helped them clarify and understand their own goals for meditation. So around this time, our design research team was also running a study, and this was looking at new users in their first 2 weeks of their journey. So if you'll remember that 2-week number, we also found that, I mean, it was the users in the second week that also were 5 times more likely to convert. So we were really interested in this week 2, or the second week of their journey. So we asked users to kind of journal or write about what was working for them, like when and where and why do they choose to meditate, or why they don't. What are their main obstacles, like what worked well for them, what questions did they have, what benefits are they expecting. And so this was another really helpful input, because from this study we learned that 83% of users are completely new. They might not even know what meditation is. They might think it's, I don't know, something you do while you sleep or something you do while you run. They had no idea. We also learned that new users need much more guidance than we are providing. They had tons of questions. They didn't know if they were doing it right, when they would feel better. And also, time wasn't a problem. You know how you hear, like, oh, I'm busy, I don't have time for that. Like, I've got kids, or I've got to go to work. Time actually wasn't the problem for these users. They actually reported having up to 3 hours of free time. It was just kind of making time for healthy activities, which is, you know, we've all kind of gotten home from work, and you could go to the gym, or you could watch 3 hours of Netflix, whatever. And so this was the same problem that our users were running into. So at this point, we were starting to see a lot of themes, right? A lot of our users were saying, I forgot. Am I doing this right? I just ignore my reminders. And when am I going to feel better? So this is when our trusty science team gave us some advice. They said our problem with retention was actually a habit formation problem, and had we looked at that? So for those of you who aren't familiar with the habit formation loop, I'll use an example of something we hopefully do every day, brushing our teeth. So in general, in the habit formation loop, the trigger is the thing that reminds us to kind of take action. So maybe this will be like bad breath, or, you know, if it's gone for a long time, maybe like a mossy feeling on your teeth. That's the trigger. And if it's a good trigger, hopefully it'll prompt you to take action. So in this case, it's brushing your teeth, flossing your teeth, something like that. And after you brush, the reward is that minty clean feeling. Maybe you run your tongue over your teeth and it feels good, or your breath is better. And then over time, you might make an investment in a nice electric toothbrush that, you know, furthermore, reinforces, like every time you use your nice Sonicare or whatever, your teeth feel even cleaner and you feel good about it. And so this is the loop. So when we mapped what we heard to this framework, we saw that we were lacking in almost every category, right? Users weren't motivated by our reminders. They weren't clear what they were supposed to be doing or when they were supposed to be taking action. They didn't know how they were supposed to feel, when they were supposed to feel better. Oops. And we weren't helping them find time in their schedule to invest in the product. So based on this framework, we came up with 4 new hypotheses. And these were what we'll call science-based, or I don't know, based on sort of habit formation. We came up with these 4 new hypotheses that were targeted at users' needs. And so if you'll remember, the old hypotheses were just looking at the data. We made some assumptions and we came up with some stuff. These 4 new hypotheses that I'm going to walk you through, we hoped would actually answer those questions. So first, we thought that if we could create intrinsic triggers to motivate users, when the reminder came up, they would be more likely to practice. So in this case, maybe your goal is to have better, more restful sleep. Play this guy again, because he's cute. So say we asked you to set this goal. Hopefully every time you got the reminder, maybe it said something about sleep, you would be like, oh yeah, last week I didn't sleep well. I'm gonna meditate today. The action step, we thought, so step 2 was taking action. We thought that if we could provide more guidance around specifically when and how much they should meditate, like, is it once a week? Is it twice a week? Is it every day? If I miss a day, have I failed? And how long do I need to do it for it to work? We thought that if we could clarify this, it would really help users take action. And then for the reward step, it's sort of one and the same. Like, if I do that, if I meditate, 3 out of 5 times a week or every day over 1 month, will I feel better? And then last, we've talked about this, we knew it was really important for users to find time in their routine. So whether it was in the morning after they brushed their teeth or at night before they slept, we knew it was important to help them establish time in their routine to build this healthy habit. All right, so now we were at a place that felt good. We had used data as a jumping off point. I mean, we didn't ignore that data from the beginning. We used it to kind of understand how to measure success and kind of making sure we were looking at the right numbers. We had used research to uncover insights and understand our users' needs, kind of understand their successes and failures. And we had used science and this evidence-based framework in the habit formation loop to come up with organized hypotheses that were kind of rooted in science. So, equipped with these strong user-driven hypotheses, we decided to work on the new flow. But rather than jumping straight into sketching or even anything visual, we decided to first validate these concepts. So we started off with asking users to fill out these worksheets. So we'd bring users in and we would ask them, what motivates you to meditate? Circle the options below. And these were the options that we found directly from that science study. So we wanted to see how many would people circle. Would they circle 1? Is it everything? We had people who just circled the whole list. It's like, we got to start with 1. And then we asked people to fill in free-form responses. So we wanted them to elaborate a little bit more. This one user, I think he wrote, I want to manage my anxiety to the point where it doesn't disrupt my day as much as it does. And I'd love to hone my focus and quicken my comprehension in daily life. So these were really helpful. It was just kind of for us to get a better understanding. We also asked users to read these science tidbits. We were on this science roll, and we were like, well, we love science. Maybe users would find it helpful. And so you'll see here that this one participant circled 14%. And so it turns out it's really hard for just regular people to understand what a 14% increase in performance is. I don't know what that means. Or an 18% decrease in anxiety. It's a little bit too specific for people to know. So what we found out were these science facts were really polarizing. For some users, they really resonated. They were like, cool, this is a specific number I can look to. I really like that. And then for some others, like this one, they got stuck on the details. So then we got started sketching the flow. That's my finger. And we wanted to give structure to these hypotheses. Like we knew like all the pieces we wanted to include, but like, what does this look like? Is this really long? Is it short? Is it going to feel heavy? Are we going to have problems with drop-off again? The pieces we knew we wanted to include were setting goals, education around the benefits of meditation, wanted to ask experience level, and maybe we wanted to ask them to set a schedule, and then output like a little plan for your meditation practice. So then, of course, you have to go into Sketch, digital product design. So we brought this into Sketch, and we continued testing every week or so. It was really helpful to get that quick feedback. But one thing we heard, to the question, you'll see, how often do you plan to meditate? We got a lot of mixed feedback. So some people liked that it was aspirational, and they liked kind of this like goal-setting aspect of it. Not just goal-setting of what you want to improve, but like, I intend to meditate 3 or 5 times a week. But other users felt like it was way too early to be asking. Like they hadn't even meditated before. Maybe they just heard about it from a friend. They were in line at Starbucks. And they had no idea. As we continued along in the goals section, you'll see in a second towards the right, we thought it would be really cool if, say you were here to improve your sleep, that it would be cool for you to sample maybe a sleep session or a sleeping single, something like that. So we included a little snippet, like a sample meditation in the onboarding. Give it a little highlight there. So again, we heard different feedback. Some people really liked to hear Andy's voice. You guys heard it. For some people, it's really soothing and pleasing. For others, they hated it. I think if you're from London, you might pick up on the specific neighborhood that Andy's from, and apparently that neighborhood is like seedy. I don't know. So some people had a bad reaction to his voice. Some people didn't like male voices. Some people didn't like British accents. So there was that. And then we also heard from some people that having a meditation, like a little bit of it, in the middle of an onboarding flow was disruptive. And so they kind of just thought that they would begin meditating from there, like they had gotten into the mood of it. And so they didn't want to continue kind of onboarding. So we had all our data, we did the research, and users were telling us conflicting things, like, what? Come on. We did all the things. So my point here is that more often than not, even with all these tools, decisions have to be made with incomplete or conflicting information, right? And on top of that, in a startup environment, things move quickly. Time is a limited resource. And so, at least for us, there's a new meditation app popping up every day. Sometimes they look just like Headspace, which is creepy. So we have to be comfortable making decisions with limited information. And so that's where intuition comes in. Remember that thing I said in the beginning about us being special in the beginning, us as humans? Well, that's intuition. So intuition helps us fill in the gaps, allowing us to kind of make a decision here. So what is intuition, right? It's kind of vague. You might have some idea of it. It feels like this thing that you sometimes reference when you can't quite explain something or you don't know how to explain it. As I understand it, or as Google has told me, intuition is the ability to understand something instinctively without the need for conscious reasoning. And so, in this case, intuition helped us simplify complexity. We decided to leave this frequency question out. If you'll remember, some users thought it was way too early to set a schedule, even before meditating. So we went back to that habit formation loop and decided to focus on the habit formation step and kind of getting users to create a healthy routine instead of asking them how frequently they wanted to meditate. Intuition was also that gut feeling that helped us decide, like, let's not include those science facts. Some people liked them, some people got stuck on them. We thought maybe it would be better, rather than selling them or educating them this early on, it would be better to set this expectation later on, once they had gotten more meditation under their belt. And last, we also decided using our intuition to remove that sample meditation. Some users liked hearing Andy's voice, and it even made them want to meditate right away. But if you'll remember from that data in the very beginning, we saw that session 1 completions weren't really correlated to week 2 engagement. So we decided to, instead of getting them straight into the audio, we decided it would be more valuable to help them get set up. Okay, so intuition. Intuition is the compass that can help us navigate uncertainty. And in design, it means that it can be maybe this non-rational pull that takes us on a surprising path or helps us decide to explore some idea that doesn't really make sense. And maybe it can lead us to a surprising conclusion. So this process of listening to our users, extracting what they mean, and understanding, that's where the real magic happens. And so you'll see, the more we repeat this process, the more we can build and develop our intuition. Over time, this skill becomes a competitive advantage because with intuition, we can move faster. We don't have to wait for all the data and things to come in. So now I'm going to walk you through the details of the final flow. So first, we start with a warm welcome, very similar to before. We set some context for what's to come. We're going to ask you a few questions. And then we ask you about your experience with meditation. Are you new? Have you done a little bit? Maybe you've done a lot. Based on this, we suggest a duration, 3, 5, or 10, and you can also change it if you decided, well, I have a lot of experience, but I want to start with very short meditations, or vice versa. And then we ask you your reasons for coming to Headspace. We took that data from the goals study, the week 2 study, and we just threw those right in here. And you'll see this expanded view. It gives you a bit more of a preview of what Headspace has to offer. And then lastly, from behavioral science, we know that the best way to create a new habit is to anchor it to an existing habit. So we created this little kind of prompt for you to choose a habit anchor or just an existing thing that you do every morning or night for you to anchor your meditation practice to. Over time, we hope that we could phase out these push reminders. So instead of waiting for your phone to say, hey, clean teeth, like how about cleaning your mind? It wouldn't be that. But instead of waiting for that push notification, we would hopefully phase those out over time, and the simple act of brushing your teeth would be enough to remind you to meditate. So we end with a little recap of what you've told us, and we just gently nudge you to meditate, or maybe you want to explore the app. All right, so it took about 6 to 8 weeks to design and build this experience, and we shipped it. We saw some numbers. And what we saw was very exciting. We saw a 10% relative increase in week 2 retention. So it worked. Very exciting. And in addition to that, we also saw an increase in conversion. And so if you remember, one of the reasons, if you remember from that graph a long time ago, one of the reasons we cared about week 2 retention, obviously, we care about people feeling better and having a healthy meditation habit, but we cared about it because it was a leading indicator for conversion. And after all, we're a business and we want to kind of get subscriptions in. So it was really exciting to see that, by seeing week 2 retention go up here, we did see conversion go up as well. So we were excited. We had moved our North Star metric, and we had also helped users by actually meeting their needs. So I think I'm almost done. Before I leave you to a break, I hope, let's go over what we learned. 1, data can help us understand the past, but it can't make decisions for us. It can help us identify opportunities like that huge drop in week 2 retention, but it can't alone prescribe solutions for us. It's a giraffe. 2, user research can help us understand why, and behavioral science can help us kind of organize our ideas, give us frameworks to base our solutions off of. But what users say can be conflicting, and sometimes we don't know they don't know what they want, or we don't know what they want, and there's not enough time to just do more research. So 3, that's when we lean on intuition. Decision making is at the heart of what we do as designers, and so we're all just trying to take that information that's available to us and make good, quick decisions. Intuition helps us do that. And so if you can take time to build your intuition and hone it, you can make faster decisions, and it can become a competitive advantage for you and your team and your company. That's all. Thank you.
Woo! Woo! Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.